Arizona Cardinals. Red Sea, rise up. Los Angeles Rams. Let's go, Ramley. Seattle Seahawks. Let's go, 12, get loud. San Francisco 49ers. Home of the faithful. Quest for the West.
It is Quest for the West time to duke this thing out mano a mano. In this case, usually it's a round table, but Sam, a little bit of a hiccup, a little bit of an issue, couldn't make it in today. That's A-OK, because I got my boy Evan down here from the He's on Fire podcast representing the Arizona Cardinals. Evan, how you doing, good sir? And let them know where they can find the pod.
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on. Going to be a lot of fun coming up this whole season, but you can find us on YouTube, He's on Fire Podcast. We're on Facebook, Twitter at He's on Fire Pod. And of course, we're on all the good podcasting websites, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, Google Playlists. So please go there, donate to the podcast, come join us as well. And I can't wait to have you on at some point too, man.
Oh man, I'm pumped about that. Are you kidding me? The more football I can talk, the better. This is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait till we're able to get all of us in here and each rep from each team so we can really get into this conversation and get going on it. But look, a lot of things happened this week with the NFC West. Everyone almost went 2-0. Everyone almost came out on top. Seattle drops one that they probably shouldn't have, and they wish they could give back against Tennessee Titans. The only good news that came out of that, though, man, I did call that. I called Tennessee over Seattle in our Lock It Up segment for our game preview show, so I put myself back into contention to win our picks for our group. That's the only good news that came out of that for Seattle. That had to have sucked. Did that shock you at all, by the way, that Seattle lost to Tennessee?
Nope, not at all. Not at all. They are not a very good team when it comes to a man running team. So Tennessee runs a lot of schemes that are kind of not zone read, but they run a lot of man to man and up the middle. And they just got gashed, man. They got gashed. Derrick Henry came out. He was pissed about what happened in week 1. He came out with a vengeance. I had a feeling it was going to happen just like you did. And it is what it is. Sorry, Seattle fans. No love lost here, right?
No, I mean, hey, in the NFC West, you'll take anytime someone drops one that you think they shouldn't, or anytime someone drops one non-conference wise, you'll take it because it just gives you that little bit of edge to get a little bit closer. I'll tell you what, Arizona so far has been, I think a lot of fans, it's been the surprise. I think how clean the defense has looked has been the biggest surprise to me. Week 1, you guys go in there and really shut down and slow down Tennessee, not able to get a lot going. I figured the run game may cause some problems for you guys just because of Tennessee's identity, but you guys get out to a big lead. They're not able to rely on that run game. They have to try and throw on you guys. There are questions I felt with the secondary, but the secondary held up against a very, very talented wide receiver core there with the Tennessee Titans. And then last week, Minnesota comes out, punches you guys in the mouth. Yep. Let us know. Let 49ers fans know. Let the rest of the NFC West know. What is going on with the Arizona Cardinals team? Are you guys the real deal?
I don't know yet because we had nothing but question marks in our secondary. We're losing Patrick Peterson, and then all of a sudden, I'm already forgetting the guy's name that just quit on us at the beginning of the season. He retires, and he played for the Tennessee Titans last year. I don't remember his name because it doesn't matter because he's not on the roster.
I think it was Malcolm Butler. Yeah,
doesn't matter. He's not on the roster. But the point is, there was nothing but questions in our secondary. We're relying on guys like Marco Wilson, who's going to be a rookie this year, who is a rookie this year. He kind of got hurt a little bit this last game, and then they go in there and they shut down Julio Jones and AJ Brown. Like, what is going on here? And then our defense was able to stifle Derrick Henry. I wasn't expecting that. That was by far the biggest upset in week 1, maybe the biggest surprise. I don't think anybody saw that. But when it comes to zone running teams like the Minnesota Vikings, that's where we struggle. And our run defense, according to PFF, was one of the worst in week 2. I mean, JJ Watt had a score like 44.9. A lot of our interior defensive linemen had like 25 point whatever it was, and it was just absolutely atrocious. I mean, this is with all due respect to Dalvin Cook, right? One of the fastest dudes and best runners in the league. He can find a little hole and he can burst right through it. Even when the defense got pressure, he still found room to run and he went up the field for 10 to 15 yards. What are you supposed to do against a Dalvin Cook, right?
There's only so much, right? There's literally only so much you can do against a guy like Dalvin Cook. And the Minnesota Vikings have done a great job of scheming him and not necessarily over-relying on him, but doing a really good job of kind of meshing the play action with Dalvin Cook and the things he does well to get their offense going. Justin Jefferson, they made the move, got rid of Stephon Diggs. Everyone thought, oh, God, what are you guys doing? You're limiting the weapons offensively. They took Justin Jefferson. I thought, well, this was the 1B to Jamar Chase's 1A there in LSU. Can this guy really be the answer? And they made a lot of risky decisions, and some of those decisions on offense paid off. Defensively, though, they are still struggling. But the Rams, another team right here in the NFC West that's 2-0 now through 2 games, they're feeling really, really good. They have 2. I don't know if the first one against the Bears is a big win yet. The Bears are still some questions on and what they are and what they're going to be. And the Colts, the big surprise, I figured the defense was going to be a little bit more formidable. Week 1, they struggled. Week 2, not so much. They do a better job of kind of corralling the Rams in. When you look at this Rams team, what do you like? What do you dislike? What are you worried about as a Cardinals fan?
I am completely sold on the Rams being the top team in the West throughout this year. And I say that because Matthew Stafford in Detroit was 3,500 yards, 4,000 yards every single season. Automatic. Didn't matter that he didn't have a running game. It didn't matter that he didn't have an offensive coordinator that knew what they were doing. I think he had 5 or 6 different offensive coordinators. And now he actually has an offensive coordinator that, one, knows what the hell he is doing. And 2, every single time you see a game, how many guys are wide open down the field? True. He just needs a guy that can throw it to him. Yeah, he just needs somebody to throw it to him. And then you add Matt Stafford, a guy that I just said can average 4,000 yards in any team in the league. And now he has a chance to absolutely feast. So they are the toast of the West to me. They still have the best defensive player probably in the league in Aaron Donald. There's not a lot to not like about them, objectively speaking. Of course, I think we both absolutely hate the Rams and want them to lose, right?
I would love it for the Rams to lose football games. Absolutely. You're not wrong there.
But
you're not.
No, they're a killer team. And then Cooper Kupp had 3 touchdowns this past week, and Robert Woods has been, not the greatest threat thus far, but things will open up. And then you got a guy like Van Jefferson. Sony Michel is going to be able to, Sony Michel just got there. He had 46 yards rushing, and he's going to be a big passing guy, a little bit down the road. And then randomly Tyler Higbee, Van Jefferson, they've just got so many weapons, but they have a guy that can draw up the correct play at the correct time, it seems. And so they scare me. They really do.
The weapons have always scared me, and then you add Matt Stafford, right? And you go from having weapons and the gaff man and Jared Goff to now a guy with a rocket arm who can, really puts the ball in the tight space. He can Matt Stafford's not afraid to take some shots, right? To let his talent make plays. It seemed like Goff didn't want to do that at times. He was too afraid of making mistakes, and so therefore he kind of, didn't pull the trigger at times where he should, and then pulls the trigger at times where he shouldn't. The good news, I think, for you and I both is that they got a real test this week in Tampa Bay. They got to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and find a way to slow down that offense and deal with that front there for Tampa Bay that is able to put a lot of pressure. And I think that's the big thing so far for the Rams that hasn't really been tested too much is a vaunted front, like a stacked front. Chicago's supposed to have that, and Von Miller's supposed to be the piece that kind of like seal, or not Von Miller, excuse me, but Mac.
Khalil.
Mac is, he's supposed to seal the deal there. But outside of Mac, I don't see a whole lot yet from Chicago in their front. You got Vita Vea, you got JPP, you got Joe Tryon, you got a lot of Dominican Sue. You got a lot of things now that are going to test this Rams O-line. Do you think the O-line weakness for the Rams or potential weakness for the Rams is something that the Cardinals can capitalize on? Because as a 49er fan, I 100% believe that when we play the Rams, we match up great just because of the D-line presence we bring.
You guys definitely do. You guys have the athleticism on the D-line to be able to stop, man schemes and zone running schemes, right? The thing that I don't think either team can do, and this includes the Seahawks, is being able to stop the passing game, because if the running game isn't going to be working, boom, 5 yards down the field, boom, quick 3-step drop, 5 or 6 yards again, just boom, boom, boom. And they can consistently do that. And I actually just checked the stats real quick. Of the 12 seasons, Matthew Stafford was there. He played 9 of them, full 16 games. The other ones, he played 10 games, 3 games, and 8 games. So I'm throwing those one out. But the full 9 seasons, he never averaged less than 4,200 yards in Detroit.
Impressive.
That's impressive. And he did it with an array of players, small guys, big guys, no running game, no offensive coordinator. And what we have seen from Sean McVay in the past is that he will absolutely dink and dunk, absolutely no problem. So you can have all the athleticism you want, but I don't think anybody's going to be able to get to them in a 3-step drop going for a 7-8 yard slant. And that's the issue that I have, why it's so hard to pick against them. And I hate it. I just, my skin crawls when I say that, but that's why I think they're the toast of the town right now.
Hey, listen, I think that's fair. I really do. I've been a staunch 49er guy that if this team's healthy, they're the best team in the West. For me, it's bar none. It's not even close. And going into the season, that's where I felt we were the top dog per se. But we've had some injuries, and we've had the secondary issues, and the guys going down in the secondary again. Last year, the only good news is that last year when we lost pieces, they were key cogs. It's your center. It's your offensive line. I mean, literally on your offensive line, your center goes down, and in Kyle Shanahan's system, it goes left tackle, then center. Those are the two most important pieces of your O-line. You lose the second most important piece. And not only did we lose the second most important piece, we also lost the backup behind that and had to go with a third-string guy off the practice squad last year, which made it so hard offensively to get anything going at all whatsoever. But this year, O-line healthy, D-line healthy for the most part. A few guys dinged up, and nothing too serious. It's the secondary now. So now we go back to essentially what was 2019. Because that was the question of 2019. You had Richard Sherman, who was coming off of second year removed from the Achilles, and Akilla Witherspoon, a 5th-round guy, or Emmanuel Mosley. It's questions. We come into this year, similar sort of thing. Jason Verrett off an incredible 2020 season. Now he's done for the year, and you're rolling with a 5th-round pick in Lenore and Emmanuel Mosley when he gets healthy. And if Mosley's not healthy, we got Josh Norman or Drake Kirkpatrick. So if this is 2016, 2015, right, you're feeling really good. But we're in 2021. We're 6 years removed from those years from those two guys. So I don't know if the Niners are sitting at the tip top, but I don't want to demote them too far because the D-line has shown that they can get it done. And this week they got tested with the deep ball, and Diamond Lenore held up. So I feel fairly comfortable with the secondary, and I know the pass rush can get home. It's really just going to be how the pass rush holds up throughout the season. Can the D-line continue to stay healthy? And if Diamond Lenore continues to grow at the rate he's growing right now, I'll tell you what, I really liked him coming out of the draft. Ant and I both talked about this a lot. Demo was a guy who we had in our top 10 of corners coming out. So when he fell all the way to the 5th and we picked him up, I was really happy with it. But he's still a 5th-round pick. He's still a rookie. We still haven't been quite tested with the receiving core that, like the Cardinals, like you guys have, the Rams receiving core, as well as Seattle's. That is one of the craziest things, is the amount of weapons the NFC West just has stacked and ready to go.
So that's one of the questions I definitely wanted to ask you on He's on Fire podcast. I'm a huge Phoenix Suns fan, huge Cardinals fan, but also Arizona State fan right here. So I'm a huge Brandon Aiyuk fan. When he got drafted to you guys, I was just like, really? I got to root for him over there in San Fran, really. And then he has a stellar year last year, got COVID, I think towards the last season, but still put up incredible numbers. Everybody's coming in with hype. Brandon Aiyuk is going to be that dude. And then you hear a lot of chirps, a lot of chatter saying like, oh, he's not ready. He's not going to be that guy. What's going on with Brandon Aiyuk right now?
So he started off camp hot. And I mean red hot. We were at a few of the days, and Brandon Aiyuk was torching everybody. He looked great. Route running is clean. He's going up in space and making catches. There's really no one on the field. I mean, he's burning Verrett a couple times. I mean, it looked really, really good. First preseason game comes and goes. He has that big drop, and 49ers fans are losing it a little bit. Second preseason game, he has the big throw over the middle. Garoppolo leaves the ball high. It was high. Me watching, I'm like, okay, Aiyuk gets his hand on it. You'd like him to make that catch, but that's tough. There's like a handful of guys in the league who can make that catch. Is Brandon Aiyuk that guy yet? I don't know. I think he can be, but obviously, he's not coming down with it. And it ends up being a pick. And Kyle visibly in the press conference afterward talks about, Ayuk's got to make that catch. Like, he has to make that catch. It was really high, but he's got to make it if he wants to be that kind of guy. Then a couple games later goes by, and all of a sudden he's got a hamstring issue. and he closes out camp dealing with a hamstring. So we come into season, Kyle is very specific usually with injuries. So when a guy is going to be missing a significant amount of time, you know about it. This guy isn't healthy. It's day to day. It is what it is. But it's really not being talked up as a big deal. So Aiyuk comes into game one and is healthy. He's on. He's a starting punt returner, and he's splitting snaps with Sherfield. The reason for that being, I really don't know. Kyle has talked about how last year, Aiyuk didn't have a guy behind him that really pushed him, meaning he had to be on the field. Like if Aiyuk's not on the field, it's a big step backwards. This year, they don't feel that way. They really like Sherfield. Sherfield has looked absolutely incredible.
Don't get me started on that. He came from Arizona. Don't get me started on Trent.
I'm aware. It's one of those things where I don't know how Cliff Kingsbury missed out on what this guy's doing so far, because he's looked amazing in camp. He's got the speed. He gets over the top. His route running is clean. He can get open underneath and in the middle.
Good special teams guy.
Incredible. I mean, last week against the Eagles in week 2, he was one of the gunners, and him and Trenton Cannon, the guy we had signed off of the Ravens after they cut him, they both looked phenomenal. But Sherfield has basically played his way up now, where because Aiyuk wasn't healthy and hasn't really shown out as much towards the end of camp, Kyle's basically making him earn it. And Wes Welker talked about it a little bit as well in a presser. They asked him, what's going on? And he said, Aiyuk has never really had to be pushed anywhere. He's never been tested. He wasn't tested at Arizona State. He wasn't tested in high school. He's always been the guy. This is the first time where he's stepping into a role where there's a guy behind him who's pushing him. It's that Arizona. It was him, and it was why am I blanking on this?
N'Keal Harry. He was the one. So N'Keal Harry went first round 2018, and then 19 it was him, and then this last year it was Frank Darby. So Frank Darby was kind of behind him a little bit, and we had a couple other guys coming up in the system, but he was behind N'Keal Harry. But his first year playing with N'Keal, he was always kind of playing catch up, because he was coming from JUCO, trying to transition to the college game. And then the next year he just absolutely took off. And that's when he had that amazing catch against Oregon to stifle the University of Oregon season. So,
it seems like from what I can piece together, it sounds like Aiyuk is maybe gotten a little complacent, almost kind of like he felt he had a grasp of what his role was and where he sat in the pecking order. And when the injury happened, he kind of I'm just going to rest up and take it easy, and it is what it is. And that isn't what the coaching staff was looking for. It seems like they wanted a little more out of him, a little pep in his step, maybe a sense of urgency, and he didn't respond the way they wanted. And so now they're making him sort of earn it. Kyle's always been really ridiculously tough on wideouts here, like really, really hard. Dante Pettis is a perfect example. Pettis had that pretty good rookie campaign where he put up 400 or 500 yards on 30 or 40 catches. Couple touchdowns. I mean, Pettis looked like he was the real deal. Got complacent going into the second year, ended up in the doghouse not too long after that, and never got out. And by the time he got to his third year in the league, Kyle basically was done with him. So with wide receivers, it's always scary with Kyle Shanahan, because he either gets the most out of them or it ends up going sideways. I don't think it's that serious, because Kyle has been very honest about it. The most of the 49ers fans who are frustrated, they keep talking about, well, he's supposed to be your guy. And then he has said now in the presser, essentially, the best part about being a head coach is I don't have to try and run a fantasy football team. So everyone who's complaining is complaining because they drafted Aiyuk in the top 5 rounds or whatever, and you're expecting him to be wide receiver 1, and he's not there yet. He's still maneuvering his way through the system. So I think this is just going to be a thing where I think it's partially the hammy, and it's partially just he hasn't done the things that Kyle wanted it or expected him to do this leading into the season. And so he's basically putting the onus on him. You want to be the guy? Go be the guy.
That sounds a lot like his first year at Arizona State. And it wasn't until the second part of the season where he actually started coming out into his own. And then that bowl game, I want to say it was against Fresno State or Florida State. I don't remember which one. I could be wrong, but N'Keal Harry decided to sit out because he was getting drafted, and that's when he absolutely flourished and took off. So that does sound very familiar. Meanwhile, Deebo Samuel is your leader in targets. He has 20 targets. The next guy is George Kittle at 9. Yeah. George Kittle getting 9 is very surprising. Deebo Samuel getting 20, that's even more surprising. What have you seen out of Deebo so far?
Deebo mostly it's been actually kind of a breath of fresh air, if I'm being honest, because in the past, Kittle was that target share guy. He was that guy that we relied on. So the fact that you don't have to deal with that, or you're not having to rely on Kittle and Deebo's able to take a brunt of that, has been actually really good for the run game because Kittle has been amassing souls, essentially, is what 49ers Twitter has been calling it. And if you watch the All-22 film, oh my Lord almighty, this dude is just laying everybody out. Linebackers, safeties, corners, nobody's safe. He has taken everybody to task. And that's really helped the run game, especially with a young running back in Elijah Mitchell who's still getting his feet wet in the system. It's really helped him out because Kittle blocking at elite level is great for the run game, but it also makes it really good for the play action. And it's also getting people's attention off George Kittle. Niners fans are clamoring for more Kittle, but a lot of teams are talking about how Debo has been the guy, and Debo has amassed a lot of touches, which is great. And he's been doing it in a much different way than his first 2 years. A lot of the touches in the first couple of years were really short stuff. Some stuff over the middle, not much deep, and a lot of like running actions, a little jet sweep.
It was a lot of like 10, 12 yards, and he would just sit in place and then go.
Yeah, this year it's been everything. Yeah, posts, digs, sideline hitches, rails, verticals. I mean, he's been doing it all. The jet touch passes are obviously still there. The reverses are obviously still there for him as well. But I want to actually ask you about this because Rondale Moore had himself quite a day too in week 2. Had a pretty wonderful play, and I immediately saw the Tyreek Hill 2.0 comparisons for Rondale Moore sprouting all over the place. How are you feeling about him and his development? Did they hit on this guy, and is this guy going to be a big weapon all year for the Cardinals?
I just want to say that I'm very lucky in both of my fantasy football leagues that I drafted him in the last round, thinking that he was going to be the spark plug that he is turning into. So little kudos to myself, but this is exactly what Cliff Kingsbury has been missing in his system. I'm not the biggest Cliff Kingsbury fan. I'm not going to come on here and saying he's doing this great and doing that great. He's adjusted, which we haven't seen in the first 2 years. He's done some different things, but in his 4-out spread, 10-man personnel, he's finally got a speed guy. He drafted Andy Isabella 2 years ago, and he's been just an absolute bust. They thought he was going to be the speed guy, and he's fast, but he hasn't done anything. He's pretty good on special teams, but that's it. But Rondale Moore has jets, bro. This guy can do absolutely everything. He's on special teams, returning punts and kicks. He's taking the fly routes. He's going the post routes. And then he's just going to get a little handoff or a little toss, and he's going to do some end arounds, and he's going to get you 6, 7, 8 yards, and then he'll break one for you. He's been doing so many things. I'm impressed with him. We didn't see him much in the preseason. Now we know why. I really can't wait to see him flourish. And a lot of people have said because we had Larry Fitzgerald on the team the last 2 years, that's why we were looking slow, because all we were doing was trying to throw screen passes to Larry Fitzgerald and expecting what, like a 1 or 2 yards? Like, this dude isn't quick. Now all of a sudden we're getting 6, 7, 8 yards. And instead of it being 2nd and 11, it's 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2. You know, that's a big difference for any offense. That just opens up your entire playbook on 2nd and short. So Rondale Moore has been the guy that we've needed so far, but now what's going to happen when defenses are going to key on him, right? What are we going to do differently? Are we going to start throwing it to Christian Kirk and AJ Green more? Or are we going to do what we just did with Max Williams, our blocking tight end, where he had 7 receptions for 94 yards after not even getting a target in week 1?
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem for everyone else, right?
Exactly. It's a good problem to have. We've got a lot of weapons. We have arguably the best wide receiver core top to bottom in the NFC West. But Rondale Moore is definitely turning into that lightning guy, and you got to account for him, man. You definitely have to.
No, you're not wrong there. You have to think about it. Are you worried at all about the run game maybe not having that lead back or that kind of go-to guy? Do you feel the passing can get it done and Kyler Murray's legs maybe can get it done? Are you worried about your running back room at all?
Kyler Murray doesn't want to run. You know, if he runs 5 times for 20 yards like he did against the Titans, he'll take that every day of the week. And of course, when you have a running quarterback, you know, things are going to happen. This last game, our tackles got eaten alive. So Kyler Murray had to escape and had to make things happen. And that's how we got the D-Hop touchdown, the first one, and then the Rondale Moore touchdown as well. But our running back group, I don't worry about them. Chase Edmonds can be not really a number 1 to me. He's not that true number 1. But he can take number 1 snaps and he can do things with it. He's getting positive yards. Even when the defense is converging on him, he's finding a way to get that 2, 3, 4 yards. And all of a sudden you're at 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 11. Again, a big difference. And then you have James Conner, who I don't know anybody who doesn't love James Conner's story, right? Fighting cancer at Pitt, coming in and then doing big things when Le'Veon Bell went down. I know a lot of people that love James Conner just for who he is. who he is on the football field. A lot of people didn't like last year, but I see a guy that fills a role that Kenyon Drake could not. Kenyon Drake saw a hole right up the middle between the center and the right guard, and he would go to the right side, or he'd go all the way to the left side. Whereas James Conner is definitely the guy who's going to hit that hole. He's going to get us those extra yards that we couldn't get. And we haven't had a power back since Beanie Wells.
Oh man, that's a while.
We haven't had like a power back. You know, some people will say David Johnson. I question if David Johnson was really that power back. He was a flash in a pan. He had 2 really good years, and then that was kind of it. Power back, a guy that can actually go into a line with no holes and push the line to get those big yards. That's James Conner, and I think he fills a really good role. And it's about filling the roles. It's not about getting the star player in there in the backfield in this system, because the star player is Kyler Murray. That's who the star player is. So if he can't run, the offensive line can do their job. And Rodney Hudson, the best center in football, has been an absolute blessing for this. And I think he's really helping too, because last year with our centers, man, like the snap would be there within 1 step of a drop. K1 already had a hand in his face, and there was no running room for anybody. So just having a good center can make a lot of running backs better. But I can say the same thing for you guys too. You guys really don't have that true number one. And I don't know if anybody would really say Raheem Mostert was going to be that number one coming off of that injury. So talk to me about your backfield a little bit.
I mean, look, it's one of those things where with Kyle Shanahan, he's always been a kind of a running back by committee thing.
Yes.
Feel. It's always been a running back, who's the hot hand, who's doing what. And there's always been guys in his system at some point who, right, they elevate, they step up. Whether that was in Washington with Alfred Morris early on, whether that was in Atlanta, he had Tevin Coleman, a young Tevin Coleman and a young Devontae Freeman. Devontae Freeman kind of stepped into that role. And then at times, Tevin Coleman would step as well and take over that workhorse role. San Francisco was kind of the same way. When he first came in, they brought in Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris really didn't separate himself. And so we kind of shifted and started making moves and moving away. And we brought in Tevin Coleman. Matt Breida asserted himself for a little bit of time. And then that 2019 season, Mostert kind of shines and grows there that last 8-game stretch and has the historic NFC Championship game against the Packers. So,
sure damn did.
Man, that was was still a great moment for the 49ers and as a 49er fan. So then we're expecting that to continue, and 2020 starts out hot. The first couple of games, basically the first time he touches the ball is lightning in a bottle, and you're feeling like, man, this guy can just maybe break this offense and take
you're
it
buying
to a whole
his jersey,
level.
you're buying stock, you're doing everything. Yeah,
you're all over it. And then this happens. It's happened now the last 2 years, and it seems like it's the same knee. So it's heartbreaking. The good news is that the Niners did a lot this offseason to insulate themselves in the running back room. You go and draft Trey Sermon. You went and drafted Elijah Mitchell. Now, granted, Sermon, concussion protocol, don't know what that's going to be now and how long that's going to be out for.
Yep.
Elijah Mitchell, shoulder day-to-day. It looks like he's going to be fine. So that's the great news, especially after his week 1 performance against the Lions. And then JaMychal Hasty dealing now with what is a high ankle sprain. So that could be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. Who knows? Depends on rehab and how everything goes with that and how serious the sprain actually is. I'm not too concerned. Kerryon Johnson on the practice squad. He can kind of fill that third down kind of heavy back role for us at times. Don't get me wrong. If we have to rely on Kerryon Johnson, I'm not excited about that potentiality.
Welcome back, Kerryon. Welcome back to the league.
My word. So it's just I don't really know what else they can do other than making a trade. We've talked about it a little bit on the pod before. Matt Breida, trading for Matt Breida, getting him back into the system. You already know he can have success. He really hasn't taken a beating. He's had like maybe 100 touches in the last 2 years since he's left San Francisco. So there's definitely speed still there. He hasn't had any injuries. It's not been a health issue for him. It's really just been he's had no success anywhere else. You know he can kind of have success here. But, after the big move for Trey Lance, how much more draft capital do the Niners actually want to give up? And I joked with Sam about this last week. The Niners are in a position right now where if you start trading away more draft capital to bring guys in, you're going to be sitting like the Seattle Seahawks in the draft, not picking until like the 3rd or 4th round with no draft picks and a draft that had a ton of talent everywhere.
And a pissed off quarterback, right?
That too. You don't want that. You don't want that. No pissed off quarterbacks. No, just not at all.
And your guys' running game is just, obviously it's similar to the Denver Broncos with Mike Shanahan. Everybody wants to make that comparison, but I remember the Broncos back in the day, and I'm blanking on a lot of names, but they brought in Clinton Portis at one time. They brought in obviously Terrell Davis, and there was a whole lot of just kind of random guys there, but they could plug in anybody and they got 1,000 yards out of them. right?
Yep.
That's what Mike Shanahan did. Or they had Clint Portis and they shipped him away. That's right.
Yep.
Now you guys, it just seems like it's maybe not an abundance of riches when it comes to the backfield, but it's just having that coach to be able to put the running back position onto the field, putting them in a position to succeed, and just having a guy that can find the hole and break through it. That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like to me. Am I off on that?
No, it's the scheme. Shanahan's scheme and how he goes about attacking defenses, taking what they give him, keeping them off balance with, wide receiver reverses, the jet sweeps, and the things of that nature. I mean, dude, I saw 2019, the play that sticks out in my mind that people forget about all the time is the fullback stretch into an option. It was an option play. It was a legitimate speed option play with Kyle Juszczyk initiating the option. Pitching it out in space to Remo. It doesn't make any sense. Who thinks to do that in a goal line situation in which that could absolutely just blow up in your face? Kyle Shanahan does. Kyle Shanahan's willing to put the ball in his fullback's hand in order to run an option play because his quarterback isn't an option quarterback. So I'll go with my next best option, a guy that I trust in my fullback. Kyle just very creative with how he wants to attack the field horizontally. And we've had success going vertically, but it's usually after we establish that horizontal stretch, whether it's outside zone, whether it's the sweeps and the tosses, really getting teams to try and play and cover sideline to sideline, be worried about, the whole shot potential with Mostert. Luckily, Elijah Mitchell, still a pretty fast guy, 4.3 guy, so he can still hit those home runs. It just won't be as often because you don't have that little extra Mostert speed there. But it is what it is. Kyle wants to, I think, get a little bit more vertical anyway. That's why they went and drafted Aaron Banks and got a little bigger at the guard position.
Sure.
And Jalen Moore. They want to be able to get a little more vertical, but it's going to take some time. Banks isn't ready yet. Jalen Moore has looked great at the tackle spot, but they're just not quite there. It's not all dialed in on the interior, but the outside's still there. They'll go with that as much as they can, try and get some teams to spread out, and then hit you inside when they can.
How long is Alex Mack and Trent Williams going to play for?
That's a great question. I really don't know. I think Mack is going to be for sure 2 years. Williams' contract is 6, but the Niners can get out of it after 3. So they can get out of it after his third year and basically lose no money. It doesn't cost them anything. They can get out of it. And I think there was 2 things to that. Number one, if Trent ever drops off, you can get out and not have to worry about paying him the crazy amount. But number 2 would be if he decides he wants to retire after 3 seasons, right? You can move on. He can move on. He'll still get a little something, but he just won't get everything that he wants to get, and he doesn't have to feel guilty because that was always kind of the plan. So I feel you got at least Trent Williams for 3. You got probably Mack for at least 2 this year and next year, and if he wants to keep going after that, then he will. I think the big thing is Jalen Moore. The Jalen Moore signing, I didn't think it was going to be a swing tackle type of signing. I thought it was going to be maybe shoring up the interior at guard. If Trent decides to retire in 3 years, if Jalen keeps developing, I feel pretty comfortable we got ourselves a nice steal in round 5.
And for some reason, you guys always seem to get those guys. I think it was Mike Upati. You got him in the 3rd round or the 4th round, even. It was lower in the draft. I remember. Definitely wasn't a 1st round pick. And you guys just seem to always just reload, and it pissed me off because Steve Keim, our GM, is just by far one of the worst GMs, and everybody in Arizona is absolutely sick of him. We want him gone, but he actually did a pretty damn good job this year, but not the way you guys always seem to. Steve Keim is an offensive line guy that couldn't draft and develop offensive talent. Of course, it wasn't his job to develop that. Meanwhile, the 49ers, it didn't matter if your coach was Chip Kelly or if it was, sorry to bring that name up, you guys, or if it was Harbaugh or whoever it was, you guys always seem to have the strong, stout offensive line that could play with, at the time, the Seahawks when they were, the 12th man, Legion of Boom, all that stuff. So you guys were the only team in the league that could really stack up with them. And it pissed me off because that's what I wanted. So props to you guys on that.
We appreciate that. Upati was a first, but Daniel Brunskill, the guy who right now is our right guard, he was undrafted. So I mean, we had an undrafted right guard, and then you got McGlinchey, who's a first rounder. You got Trent Williams, who's obviously Trent Williams, right? Alex Mack, who's been just a bona fide solidified guy, and Lincoln Tomlinson, who's a former first round pick. I mean, they got really the O line is mostly guys who right now are first rounders. It's everyone behind them that is really late. They're late picks with the exception of Banks. Banks is Banks is a second-round guy. Brunskill was undrafted. Jalen Moore, he's a fifth-rounder. McKivitz was a fifth-rounder. He's on the practice squad currently, but Skule also was a guy who was drafted late as well. Basically, everyone else behind these guys that they're relying on in case something goes down, they're all pretty late in the draft prospects. I mean, Kittle, for God's sakes, was a fifth-round pick. I don't know how many teams. I still can't wrap my head around how people didn't see what he could potentially be. Just the hands that the guy possesses, the speed, the physicality, the blocking. Extremely underrated. We got really, really lucky with Kittle. Really fortunate that we got this guy in here because he's held it down for so long, and now we're at a point where finally the receiving core is starting to get there. We're starting to put the pieces together. We're starting to hit at that wide receiver spot and add some depth, so it takes a little bit of pressure off Kittle. But still, nowhere near what you guys have amassed in your wide receiver arsenal there. Nowhere near what not as proven, I guess, as the Rams right now, per se. Not as proven as the Rams and what Cooper Kupp and what Robert Woods have done. We're hoping, right, 2021 is the year for the 49ers receiving core, but Brandon Aiyuk definitely got to get it going in order for that to be the case.
And then you got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who just Tyler just puts up 30 to 40 points on fantasy every single game.
It drives me nuts, man.
And he still drops and drafts. It's incredible what that guy can do all the damn time.
Oh yeah, no, the NFC West right now is it's a powder keg, man. Any team on any given week can blow up. You guys have yourself an incredible matchup this week with the Jags. In terms of you got an incredible matchup for y'all. This should be in theory, right? This should be in theory an opportunity for a big wax and a big statement win. Are you worried at all about this 10 a.m. game? Because you're at Jacksonville, so you are having to go to the East Coast.
And that's always tough for anybody in the NFC West to go over on that far side. On the other side of the ocean, the Atlantic side. And for some reason, these teams just always come out a little bit flat, except for week 1 when we played Tennessee. Again, one of the things that made it so absolutely shocking. Now, when it comes to Jacksonville, I feel confident. I think we will win. Yes, of course, it's Eastern time zone. It's all that stuff. Honestly, if we win 23-21 and we come out healthy, I really don't care. Right? Sure. I just want to come out healthy in that game. I do want to see a little more running. I want to see the offensive line coming out and prove a little bit because they got worked in this last game. They got absolutely worked. So I want to see that. I want to see the defensive line go in and stuff the run. And I just want to see a complete game. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a blowout, but let's do a couple 6, 7, 8 minute drives, right? We don't always need to go down and try to go long and do all these flashy plays. Let's not throw out a whole bunch of whatever Cliff Kingsbury has in his damn bag, right? He's going to go off and he's going to do these weird ass plays, just like you were just talking about with the fullback option play. We don't need to be doing any of that. Let's play up the gut football. Let's throw it to our wideouts in some spaces, do a few small creative things. Let's get out of there healthy and let's get back to Arizona. That's what this game is about to me. It's less about proving a point because I don't think anybody can prove a point in week 3, right? Win the game, get a W by any means necessary. Now, that by any means necessary, that does not mean let's give up 28 points in the first half and play from behind, right? No, let's play a stout game.
As a 49er fan, I would love it if you guys gave up 28 in the first half in Jacksonville. It'd make me feel better about what I thought about potentially some of your defense's weaknesses. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Trevor Lawrence is definitely having some struggles. Urban Meyer is kind of struggling to figure out the NFL game a little bit and play calling and how to attack teams. There's definitely that adjustment period he's going through right now.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you. I expected them to be at least a little more formidable at this point, wouldn't you? I mean, even without Travis Etienne, but he was a rookie running back, so not 100% sure what we were going to get out of him in the first place.
I'm starting to wonder whether or not there's any James Robinson love there. We talked about this on our daily episode earlier this week on the podcast. I love James Robinson too. It doesn't seem like Urban is a fan. He's not getting a lot of touches. He's not getting a lot of love. Now, I know game scripts haven't necessarily been in their favor, and they've had to rely on the pass a little bit more. But I've watched a lot of. I'm a Florida Gator fan. I watched a lot of Urban Meyer football. In fact, I knew about Urban before he got to Florida. One of the kids who graduated from our high school where I'm from played for Urban at Bowling Green. He was there at that time. So I knew about Urban Meyer for a long time, including his time at Utah with Alex Smith. So when he came into Florida, I was jacked. I was like, this is perfect. Urban Meyer will run the football if they are down. It's not something he won't do. They will run the ball. So the fact that James Robinson isn't getting touches makes me think that he's not that big of a James Robinson fan. And that's just going to put a lot of pressure on Trevor Lawrence all season long to have to do it with his arm. They are getting Laviska Shenault kind of in that Percy Harvin-esque role there, where they're utilizing him as a really kind of a more of a gadget tool player. He can come in the backfield.
Swiss Army knife.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens. They could get, I could be eating my words. They could get figured out this week and give you guys a test here and a push.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that's going to happen. I still feel it's early. But yeah, I'm definitely surprised there. And you got the Rams in our conference as well in the NFC. They got the Bucks. They're at home though. Bucks are coming to them, so that helps them out a little bit. 1:25 start time there, and then you cannot forget about our other brethren over here, right? We cannot forget about the Seattle Seahawks and what they got to do now, going at Minnesota, going to the Vikings, who, I mean, bad taste in their mouth might be an understatement. What the Vikings have been dealing with. I got a Vikings fan who literally in our fantasy league sent me a message and just says it's like it'll never end. It really, kickers and the Minnesota Vikings. It's just like, what, I don't even know why we have them. I don't even know why we bother signing them.
Who was the dude that missed it in the 99 NFC Championship game?
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. If I had him on speed dial right now, I would know. I would know that off the top of my head, but I don't. I'll try and pull it, but my goodness.
But that, and then they played Seattle in that -9 Ice Bowl in the playoffs X amount of years back. Missed a kick to win that game. I feel their pain. I know exactly what they're talking about. But unfortunately, this is the NFL, and that happens. You have to rely on a damn kicker. It is what it is, and they should be pissed. Vikings should absolutely be pissed. They're finally going home. They played on the road at Cincinnati, on the road at Arizona, and now here they are. Seahawks coming in, a huge opportunity for them to, get their head above water a little bit, and against the Seahawks. And how wonderful would it be to have the Seahawks be 1-2 after week 3? That would be a blessing for all of us, right? Because in my opinion, to win the NFC West, a team has to go minimum 3-3. You have to go 3-3 in the NFC West if you want to come out alive. If you go 4-2 in the NFC West, you're looking really good. If you're looking 2-4, you got to find all these other wins somewhere else too. So Seahawks going down 1-2 this early, again, I don't think there's statement wins in week 3, but you can start losing seasons, right? I think you can start losing teams and losing seasons. You start
spiraling. You start being concerned about, your identity. Can you guys get this done? Do you need to make a change? You at least start questioning some things. Because if you're not able to execute the way you want to execute, you start asking questions about your roster, or maybe looking at potentially moves that you need to make in order to bolster certain things up. And that means giving up more. Seattle already didn't have a lot of draft capital this year, but they're going to have a test. And it was Gary Anderson, by the way. Gary Anderson was the kicker.
How could I forget Gary?
Gary Anderson was the kicker in that. Yeah, the Vikings, though, man, they're definitely going to try and find a way to not have to rely on the kicking game. They don't want to rely on special teams. Got to find a way to get this thing done. It's definitely going to be a game. It's going to be tighter. Seattle obviously could blow this thing open because the Minnesota's team, that weakness is their secondary, and you guys exploited that last week. Seattle's going to look to try and do the same thing, and the Niners got themselves a test. You got Aaron Rodgers, you got Devontae Adams there. Really going to be testing the secondary of the 49ers. Luckily, front solid for the 49ers on both sides of the ball. Hopefully, we're able to apply that pressure and make Aaron Rodgers' life absolutely miserable and no one to throw to. But that's going to be an interesting Sunday night matchup for sure.
And I got Aaron Jones on my team. And thank you, Aaron, by the way. You won my game with your 41-point performance, and you did a lot for a lot of people. So thank you, Aaron Jones. So we've got 3 really good games this week. One of them, obviously, you guys are on Sunday night. We play earlier in the day. Ours would be, the cupcake of the NFC West. How do you think things are going to shake out? I'd like to start with the Rams. I mean, both of us think the Cardinals are going to be able to beat the Jaguars, so we'll call that one. But Rams and Bucks, what are you thinking to start with there?
I'm thinking the big thing is going to be basically the Rams O-line. If the Rams O-line can somehow find a way to give Stafford time, not a bunch of time, but 4 seconds in the pocket, 4 to 5 seconds in the pocket, and let them take the deep shots downfield, they'll have an opportunity, because the big question with Tampa Bay is still that safety room and their corner play. Is it consistent? Can they prevent the deep ball? I saw last year too many times where they gave up too many things over the top and deep, week 1 against Dallas. You saw that a lot as well, them taking shots and Dak taking shots downfield on them, really pushing and really pressing. If they can protect Stafford and give him time, Stafford is going to probably eat up that secondary, I would imagine. However, if Vita Vea is getting a push, making life hard for Stafford, if Dominic Sue is able to do the same thing and they're able to really stifle the run game, there's questions because their linebacking core is phenomenal there. I don't think Higbee is going to be much of a threat or an option this week for them. It's going to have to be on the outside. It's going to have to be vertical and probably maybe not over the middle often, but whenever Tampa goes zone over the middle, they'll have some opportunities and some chances. But it's going to start up front. If the Rams O-line can hold up, they're going to have a chance. They're going to have a chance to basically, I think what most people would say is steal one from Tampa Bay.
I absolutely see the Rams being able to pull this one out. I think it's going to be close, but we saw the Bucs last year at the opening of the season, and we've seen Tom Brady the first, 2 to 4 games, not really the greatest, not the sharpest. And, that's fine because they're always on point towards the end of the season. But I see this being a little bit of a letdown game for the Buccaneers coming off of the Super Bowl win, going 2-0, playing really a crappy Atlanta team. This is going to be a true first test for them. They were barely able to stick it out against Dallas on the opening Thursday night game, which was so much fun to watch that night. That was one of the nights that I was sick. So I just had that on and it was great to watch. But I think this is a little bit of a letdown game for them. A little bit meaning I think it's going to be like a 6 or 7 point victory by the Rams, and I think they're going to squeak it out. But again, I unfortunately believe in the Rams this year.
And listen, you put them at the top, right? So until they let you down, you're going to probably roll with them the rest of the way, and that's completely fair. They brought in a lot. They had the best defense in the NFC last year. You added weapons as well for them, and you brought in Matt Stafford. That's a big change for them. Seattle, though, Minnesota, it's really hard for me to ever pick against Seattle. I did it last week kind of on a whim. I don't know if I can do it again this week.
Oh, you have to. If they lost last week, you have to. There's no choice now.
You feel Minnesota's going to bring this one out here and set them to 1-2?
I actually read quite a few things that a lot of the players are pissed. I watched Brian McFadden's and Patrick Peterson's podcast a little bit where he was trying to talk trash on the Cardinals. Very funny. I'll send you the link if you want. But they're pissed. They feel like they're right there and they just got to put in a little bit of extra work and they're going to come in focused, and it's their first home game. It's hard to kind of pick against them, but Russell Wilson, man, it's hard to ever pick against Russell Wilson. But I do think the Vikings are just the way that things are laying out right now. I don't necessarily think Seattle's better or the Vikings are better. I just think the way it's playing out in the season that the Vikings are going to be able to get the job done this Sunday. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's 100% fair. My gut feeling right now tells me that heading into next week when we sit down to do this quest for the West, you and I, hopefully Sam's able to be on. Hopefully we'll have our Ram correspondent on as well. You and I will be able to sit here and basically, I know you're going to like the Rams. You're going to give them that respect, but it's going to be a discussion between the two of us of who actually sits atop the NFC West, because I think the Niners and the Cardinals have a great chance to be 3-0, and the only 2 3-0 teams in the NFC West coming next week.
That is absolutely fair, and I can't wait to watch the action that's going to go on, and it's really going to put a lot of proof in the pudding this week. A lot of teams are going to be able to sink their teeth in. They got to show some stuff, not really the Cardinals. Everybody else does, and who knows what we're going to get from Aaron Rodgers versus you guys. Like, I mean, he's coming home. He's coming back to the Bay Area. I mean, Santa Clara is not the Bay Area, but another discussion for later. It's close enough.
Close.
But he's coming home. He always does good when he's in California. You would expect the Packers, the reigning MVP, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, to come in and want to be 2-1. So you expect a good game. Is this going to be a letdown game for the 49ers? Is this going to be the blow-up game for Jimmy Garoppolo?
No, I don't think so. No Zadarius Smith, so your big pass rush linebacking presence isn't there. They still got some corner weapons, but they had a lot of questions with the corner position. I don't think it will be. Jimmy has really asserted himself as QB1. It's been kind of a surprise. We expected it to be the Shannon plan and then utilizing more of Trey Lance, and there's really been no desire from Kyle. I mean, Kyle Shanahan has said it. He jokingly said in his presser yesterday, someone asked him, hey, did you want, are you trying to use Trey more and the situations are popping up? And he said something essentially the effect of, "Oh, there was actually a couple situations where I thought about it. Thought this is a good situation for Trey, or maybe I should get him in," and then just decided to do something else. It's just like, he's like, I thought about it, but then I decided to just go on living my life and let Jimmy go out there and do his thing. So Jimmy has really asserted himself as QB1. Lynch and Shanahan said as much throughout preseason that he elevated, right? Bringing in Trey really elevated his preparation, the way he went about it. And I said it in the first press conference I saw Jimmy in OTAs when he showed up. Dude, this dude looks like he's in the best shape of his life. He was cut. He was clean. He looked fit. He looked confident, comfortable. There was an aura radiating off him I had never seen before. I was like, he was already a good-looking dude, but now he's a good-looking dude with the chin line and the aura. I was like, oh, there's some problems. There's something different here. Jimmy's different, and he's acting like it, and he's playing like it so far.
Well, with all due respect, I hope you guys come crashing down to reality. But just to give you an idea of how close all these games are, the Rams-Bucks, the line is Tampa Bay -1. The Seahawks and the Vikes, Seattle -2. Packers and Niners, San Francisco -3.5. And just for comparison's sake, Jags and Cardinals -7.5 towards Arizona. So that just shows you how close a lot of these games are going to be. And I mean, it's the NFL. It's week 3. God, week 2 was one of the crazier weeks I can remember. So many teams came crashing down to earth. So many teams rose up, like the Packers. Who knows what we're going to see from week 3? I'm excited though, and I can't wait to come back on next week as well.
I'm excited. We're excited to have you on. We're glad we're getting to do this. Can't wait to collab with you guys as well and on your pod once we get closer to the 49ers Cardinals, which is really, it really is. It feels like it's right around the corner.
Week 5, 2 weeks from this weekend. There we go.
It is. So we'll have a nice collab episode there. We'll have Evan on for Know Your Opponent. We'll be on over there as well to have a nice conversation. It'll be a lot of fun. Evan, make sure you let them know too, again, where they can find you.
He's on Fire Podcast. I am personally on Twitter at Coach Evan B. You can find He's on Fire Podcast at He's on Fire Pod. We are on YouTube as well too. All the links are on there for Spotify, Google Playlists, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor as well too. So please come on over, subscribe, like, share, and we'll have you on soon.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Links are all in the description down below as well. So if you don't want to try and type it in, just go over there, click it. Go check them out and what they're doing.
Boom.
Make sure you stay up to date on what the Cardinals are up to. It's a fun quest for the West, man. We really, really appreciate you coming on, Evan. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Cutback crew. Until the next one, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the quest to become the top spot in the NFC West.
Go.